to this community panel here at 10:30, and so it's great to be kicking off. Wow, scattered applause. There we go for our panelists. Excellent. There we go. So, first of all, just to get you all to the right room, so obviously today we're going to be having a community panel with 3 of our awesome community members here, with myself chairing. So, if you're looking for the session on AWS certifications, that's in another room, I'm not too sure where, but we're obviously going to be kicking off here. So, first of all, my name's Stephen, I'm an AWS community hero, and I'm going to be chairing this panel because Alan made the mistake of giving me a stage and a microphone. So, with that, I'll introduce our 3 panelists. So, we've got some very, very interesting voices here with us today. So, Dmytro, how are you going, mate?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Okay, more specifically, can you tell us a bit about yourself, Dmytro?
Okay, so I'm Ukrainian, and you can hear it from my accent. And I came in Australia in a tough time. It was 2022, it was a COVID, it was war started in Ukraine. And I with a family came to Australia. So it was very stressful for me. And the only safe harbor, some anchor, which make me feel more confident, was my technical expertise. So I was starting to look around if any people who in AWS around, if I can find someone who can help me with networking, with settle down here. Because when you came to Australia, first animal you met was this ibis. For me, it was more scary. I was told about the drop bears, and it's even worse than these birds. So I came to the Brisbane user group, and first time I met Alan there, and I started to listen for other people what they're talking. They talk English natively. It was hard to understand sometimes, but much easier than a normal technical English is easier for me than talk on different topics. So after a year, Alan offered me to be a presenter there. And then I tried it. It was interesting experience. I had the sweat palms. It was hard for me to stay in front of people, share my experience, share my expertise. And the next step was to think about the Gold Coast, because it's totally fine for me to come to Brisbane. It takes like 1 hour drive to participate in a user group, but what about to run a user group in Gold Coast? And luckily I met Steve, who was running AWS user group Gold Coast for a long time before COVID, and he was happy to pass it over to me to step in and continue work. So yeah. Here's how it started for me.
Yeah, and I guess for you, like you've kind of had that whole journey of moving to a new country, finding the first AWS user group within Brisbane, and the whole experience of speaking, and then obviously running a user group yourself. One thing, I guess, just, obviously with people when they're starting to think about, attending a user group, what was your first thoughts on that first time of thinking, here's a user group, I'm going to go to it? When you first were going into it, was it a little bit like, oh, I'm a little nervous? It was just like, oh, I'm totally into this, let's go. Like, what was your first impression when you first stepped into the user group as an attendee?
I was shy. I'm kind of introvert. So for me, it's like a global change when I need to start talk with people. So I've started to hide somewhere in the corner and listen. And after a while, when people come to me, start to recognize my face and like, good to see you, I started to speak to them. And so it was really stressful for me.
Yeah, and I guess another thing from that, thinking about obviously sitting on a stage here today, talking with a room full of people, when you first went into a user group, would you be thinking that you would be sitting on a stage like this, is that sort of thing?
No.
No? Really? So, I mean, I think
still can't believe I'm here on a stage with the people so popular in the AWS community, and I am one of them.
Yeah, and it always starts from one spot, doesn't it? And I guess thinking about that, obviously, Jason, we've heard a bit about your story. One thing that's interesting to me is obviously you were a Microsoft MVP for a number of years. you obviously had something that like kicked you across from starting as well, because as you say, you're not a tech person by, your career vocation. What was the thing that kind of nudged you towards like technology, community, creating content? What kind of led you at that first thing down this road?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a developer, but I'm pretty nerdy. Really get down to it.
You can be nerdy without being a dev, right?
Exactly. I'm happy to talk about like, MP4 codecs and things like that, but I don't really understand how to build things. Anyway, I was actually, does anyone remember news groups like Usenet? Yeah, old
Can we get a show of hands for use group users? Oh, all right, there we go.
Cool. My people. Yeah. So yeah, it was actually the late 90s, which to me doesn't seem that long ago, but God, it kind of was. Microsoft's nascent Windows mobile, Windows CE, so it was an operating system for their early devices. That's actually, I started basically doing just community peer tech support. I was just super nerdy about figuring out how things worked, and I would answer questions, and then it's a little bit like the heroes model, that we use at AWS. You see people helping other people in the community that they're going above and beyond. I mean, I was, doing like thousands of posts a month. And they invited me to join the VP program, and I kind of went from one Windows product to the next. And I even had the glory of being a Microsoft Zune MVP. I mean, come on.
Who here remembers Zune?
Zune, brown Zune. Anyone? I just love it that like James Gunn makes it a joke in his movies. That's like just the best. But yeah, that was really how I got in. But before we go any further, I have a bit of a complaint, Stephen.
Oh, really?
I feel like if we had these two things on either side and we had ferns, we could have had a whole between two ferns things going on here. Zach Galifianakis. Anyone? Okay, no Zach Galifianakis fans in here. That is okay, but that's how I came here.
Yeah, I guess, and that's the interesting thing is finding out how people get into that journey. And you've obviously had a bit of a journey as well, because you've been both a community member as an Amazon staff member similar to Jason, and also even after leaving AWS as well, continued on as a community builder as well.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously before I joined Amazon or AWS, I was a customer. So like Jason, I was in the user groups, and I was an old school sysadmin. So, dealing with servers and stuff like that. And I only got enlightened with AWS back in, I'd say 2014, so about 11 years ago. And AWS is how I met my current partner.
There we go. How cool is that?
It's an AWS love story. So what happened was the organisation that I was working at, I was a sysadmin, and the CIO said, he went to a conference and he heard that cloud is bad. It's insecure, so we can't use cloud. And turns out that one of our app vendors was using cloud, and it was on AWS. He used Elastic Beanstalk at that time. That's when all the services could fit into one screen, as in the console. And he was instructed by a CIO to migrate back into private cloud, so that's VMware. So I was a VMware administrator at the time, and he came to me and he was really upset. I was like, oh my God, we're going backwards, moving from AWS back into VMware. And can you create a LAMP stack for me? I'm like, yeah, sure I can. So I did. And that's how it all started. And from there, I've been roped into several public speaking engagements. We'll talk about that later, but it all started from there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and obviously, that involvement in the community obviously led to your role at Amazon as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so got a few Amazonians out there. Big shout out to Troy if he's out there. I said to Troy, the user groups and the community day, the OG community day back in 2018 in Sydney. Does anyone remember that one? Yeah, awesome.
Hey, we have a few.
We have a few OG members. So that's where it all started. It was like, wow, Community Day was where all the AWS community get together, and I just saw the amount of collaboration that took place with the solutions architects, with all the other partner and other AWS community members getting together. So I said during my AWS interview, I said, hey, I like to be part of that community. That's why I joined AWS.
Yeah, and obviously from that even after leaving Amazon. Like I've said this before, something that interests me is obviously a lot of people from community builders go on to become Amazonians and staff members, which is good because Amazon pays well. We do like that. But also then we find people who, after they leave Amazon, they come back through the Community Builders program, they remain engaged with the user groups and everything like that. And so, like, from your perspective, what's the thing that keeps you tied to that, even though you're, like, theoretically able to say, goodbye AWS, I wash my hands of it?
Well, one, I didn't join any of the other hyperscalers, so that's why I am allowed to be here, right? So, and the other is, it's just a passionate community. Everyone likes to give back to the community, especially heroes like yourself, Stephen, and everyone else out there. They always pitch in and make the community a better place. That's why I love being back into the community.
Yeah, and one thing that's interesting as well, I think we mentioned this a little bit earlier, but you've also got a very special piece of attire on, don't you, as well? Has anyone noticed the golden jacket? Especially up here on stage, very shiny, isn't it? Can you tell us a little bit about how that came to be? Like, what is this golden jacket? Where does that come from?
Yeah, so if you get all the active AWS certifications, and they have to be active, then you will receive a golden jacket. But, it has to be through proper means, and I know Dmytro's got one coming up. So it is kind of hard to get. If you know the right people, you'll get it. But, you've got to work hard for it.
And obviously you managed to get that as an Amazonian, but obviously there's, like, not just regular customers can get that. There are only a few certain ways, but one of those ways is like Dmytro as a community builder. So obviously, like, when you were working with AWS, that makes a bit of sense. But Dmytro, like, what drove you to go and collect all, I think you were saying before, 15 current active certifications in AWS? Yeah.
Till end of the year, it's 15, but some will... Till the end of this year, it's 15 certificates active, but some of them retired, and I unable to anymore to recertify them. But so far, it's 15. And because I was working on AWS partner, and when you partner of AWS consultancy, AWS gives you some benefits. It gives you credits for every certified employee, and it cost nothing for my company to pay off all my certifications. And for me, it was like validation of my skills, but some of them was just to learn something new, like SAP. I have never have an experience with it, so I've just learned it, how it works.
Yeah, and something with that as well for like the Community Builder program, because that's obviously a fairly new benefit for the Community Builders program, only as of, a couple of months, about a year ago or so, since you first piloted that. The other thing I remember, like, talking to you, you seemed fairly surprised about the number of people who actually went to get, all the certifications just to get the golden jacket. Like, from my experience with like the conversation with you, it seemed like you thought it'd be kind of incidental, like, if people have got them, they'll apply for it. But a lot of people actually specifically went to get all the certifications to get the golden jacket as well.
Yeah, we actually, we kind of launched it as a, benefit in preview before reInvent last year. And the main reason why is that we, for as long as I was in this role, I would get messages and people, how do I get a golden jacket? And I would say, I don't know. Like, go to a store and buy one? No, I want the one with the logo on it. And so I did some research and talked to some people in our community that had the golden jackets. I'm like, how did you get it? Well, I knew this person, I worked for this partner and this person. And it just seemed very, very complicated. And then we had members of our community, community builders, heroes, user group leaders, who didn't work for a partner, who couldn't get the golden jacket. And I felt kind of bad. And because we already had a swag infrastructure, we could buy products and ship them globally. It was just a matter of going to our vendor and saying, hey, can you get a golden jacket? Can we do this? And we basically spun it up. And it was, it was very popular. I think in the first wave, we had probably 45-ish jackets. And so we got to present them to folks at reInvent, which was like really exciting. Yeah. That would give people in person. And then, every quarter we're doing more, and we tend to get 30, 35-ish people, and then like all good services, we evolved it. Now we have we can put their name on it. It's customized, so there's like a V2 of the Golden Jacket service, and it's wonderful to be able to give that back to our community. Because, it's a couple $100 to ship it and get the jacket, but like giving them something that they can't otherwise get because they don't know the right person. that is a place that AWS can step in and solve a problem because we have infrastructure and we have budget and we can solve that for them. So it is definitely a benefit that only a tiny % of the community takes advantage of. But to your point, there's not insignificant number of people, at least a few dozen, that are basically said, yeah, I actually got most of my certs, but I'll get them all now because now I get a golden jacket. I was like, that's actually kind of cool. Yeah, so we're actually encouraging more certification, more knowledge, and more learning. So yeah.
And for both Dmytro and Mai, was there something that drove you to that 100% completion for why would you want to do all that? Because if anyone's never taken an AWS certification before, they can be fairly lengthy, especially some of the specialties in professional. I know advanced networking or machine learning tends to drive people a little bit bonkers. So what would say to you is just here's why I'm going to put time towards this. Because I'm guessing for both of you, it wouldn't just be you'd be able to take all the time in your employer to be able to study for those as well. You'd have to put in your own time as well. So what was it for both of you that was just I want to get this?
Yeah, definitely the got to catch them all kind of mindset, right? Plus all the stickers and all these different swag that you can get at different events as well. So I'm looking at the swag, obviously the golden jacket. But yeah, just a sense of accomplishment, right? Because, and I'm going to speak on behalf of the minorities out there, I've got to represent. I have been at my early stages in the career as an AWS solutions architect outside of AWS, I always get asked, okay, so do you actually know AWS? So I always get asked this question, so prove it to me. Do you really know as a solutions architect how to build on AWS? I'm an architect. I'm okay then, I've got all my certs, then you can't complain, right? So that's where it all started. So just proving to someone that you've got the credentials, you've got the experience, and
It is a very visible stamp of knowledge, obviously, right? And Dmytro, how about you?
Yeah, for me it started differently. So the first one, it was practitioner, and it was just, let me try, how hard is it? And then, because of my role in a company which is a partner of AWS, we had the requirement have amount of employees certified in AWS, and it must be some professional grade certificates to get the advanced tier. And I've completed them. Then it's turned up that we start to grow and we need to hire people. And some of the candidates had different AWS certificates. And for me, I need to have my own evaluation of their knowledge based on the certification. So I decided that I need to try it myself to understand how much it gives knowledge, how much practical experience, just to understand better how I can do this technical interview with a person who has this certificate. And when it turns to 9 or 8 certificates completed, it started like a challenge. Can I have them all? And this time AWS introduced a few more. So I already completed all the active certificates, but some new were introduced in a preview. And I decided if I didn't get yet my golden jacket, I should do this in advance. So when it comes, I have all of them. So
fun inside story. Because I knew that there were some new certifications coming out, in 2024, we kind of sat on this benefit because the timing, we wanted to make sure that it was valid and current, and so we actually waited until the new ones were announced, and then we said, okay, now if you want the golden jacket, you got to get these 2 new ones, because we didn't want it to be immediately irrelevant that somebody that had the previous certifications and was missing the new ones. So we sort of waited, and it stopped no one. They just immediately got certified, and so it's really exciting to see how much people want to get that achievement.
Yeah, and something interesting from that as well is that even for AWS Heroes, we can't get the golden jacket. That's something really only for a very few select people, community builders amongst them, which makes it all the more valuable. And something I think that it says there is that for community builders and AWS community overall, especially user groups, is that a lot of that is also about the knowledge sharing and the information that comes from within that and just the skills that people build. And thinking about that kind of thing in those stories, obviously we've heard a couple already. Jason, something I was talking to you about earlier is obviously, as you started out the Community Builder program, that was during COVID. And I remember, we had the, onboarding sessions when I was a community builder, and it was you would do the like video thing from your home, and like a lot of that was just kind of behind the screen. And I have to imagine at some point there was a point where you suddenly got a chance to actually meet someone, heard a particular story, and then it was just like, whoa, this is a real thing now. So is there anything from you that's just like, wow, this was the moment?
Yeah, I would say probably the first reInvent I went to. So I guess it would have been reInvent 21?
21 probably?
Yeah, it was 21, because I know we didn't have one in 2020, yes, it was 21. Because I was hired during COVID, in fact, I did my Amazon interviews the first week they did lockdowns in Seattle. So I'm convinced the only reason I got the job is because everyone was just so confused, interviewing from their home. They're just like, oh, let's just hire this guy and get this over with. But anyway, so it was, I think, 487 days before I even stepped foot into an Amazon office. And so it was definitely the strangest time to start a new role, and work at a big company. And so the community, by the time reInvent rolled around the next year, I mean, we were, probably 1,600 people, but I hadn't gone to any community events. Like, it was still very much I'm running this global thing, with a few other folks. And then at reInvent, when I got to meet people, and I was in selfie after selfie after selfie with people who were just really excited to like meet me, that's when it became much more real to me. So that was, I think, the thing where it became very real. But also, the stories that people tell today about how being a community builder has helped their career. To me, I didn't quite get that at first, because I thought, well, no, you're already accomplished, incredibly smart people. Why would this be helpful? But again, knowing the right people, getting opportunities to speak at an event. There's a few community builders that have said, yeah, I spoke at a summit, I gave a talk. Someone that worked for another company saw my talk and came to me afterwards, and now I work for them. So it's a really wonderful way to get that exposure. And even at AWS, I mean, we certainly don't, use our community programs as a recruiting pipeline, but I think we're up to almost 100 community builders that have been hired at AWS.
Wow.
And so it's just, again, it's a stat that I keep track of. We don't encourage it, but what's interesting is that people say that when they're interviewing at Amazon, they reference their time in the Community Builders program, and they talk about engaging with the community and the things that they've learned. And it's a very competitive job market. And so that's a great way to basically tell the Amazon person interviewing you that, hey, I'm already kind of part of this community. I already, talk, I understand what this job is about. So yeah.
Yeah, there is a lot to that. And I guess looking at this as well, I mean, so if anyone has any questions they'd like to throw in, we do want to encourage people to jump in as well. So if anyone has anything, feel free, raise your hand. Obviously, we don't have any of the mics up there at the moment. That's the limitation of the panel. But if you do have any questions, throw your hand up. I'll point you out at some point, and I'll just rephrase it so we have it for the recording as well. But something you mentioned there when it comes to the whole thing of getting hired is valuable skills. And you hinted on this in your keynote part earlier. It's both what you know, it's who you know, it's the relationship and things that you build. When it comes to the most valuable things that you can build for your career, and this is both as an abstract thing, but I also encourage you thinking about your own career backgrounds for each of you. What's been probably some of the most valuable things that you wish you could tell yourself when you were starting out your career?
At some point, I realized that technical skills is not enough, that you need to show up somehow to be visible. You need to speak about your achievements, and only it can help you to grow further. So it's something, I don't know, I realized too late, because I was always person who do not like to talk with people, give me a computer and I will be like a nerd, sit there and do my stuff. But without it, you can't do the same amount of progress when you start speaking, start sharing your experience, and it's really opens the doors.
And I think just as something on that, because as I think back to it, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I believe you were also a manager prior to your involvement in the community back when you were in Ukraine. You were already a people leader. Obviously you'd made some of those connections prior of the value of the soft skills element from, the public speaking, from organizing, user group, things like that. Has that also helped into your career as well? Is there something where you've taken away, I now have a skill set that I can actually use from what I've been doing?
Actually, I got the skill here in Australia because when I came, I continued to work on Ukrainian company. And because of the time difference, it was always work overnight to catch up with the team. And during the day, I have plenty of free time. And I started to study Diploma of Business in TAFE. And part of the course was public speaking, all the stuff. And at the same time, I was encouraged to be a presenter on AWS user group in Brisbane. And it's really the skill I started to develop here.
Yeah. And I think that speaks a lot to it as well, is that there's that value of the skills that you get from that are translated into there as well. I guess, Mai, what about yourself? Because you've obviously had like a good career through stuff as well.
Yeah, definitely. So the skills that I would recommend people to look into, one, public speaking, and also persuasion. Even if you're not going to be public speaking, you need to persuade your boss about the new feature that you're building and prioritizing. It could be your colleagues if you're having a discussion about which tool that you should be using. So persuasion. And I used to be, and I still am, very much an introvert, just like Dmytro. And you got to start somewhere, right? And just make yourself uncomfortable. Be comfortable being uncomfortable. So that's a quote from Adders.
Yeah. And I think thinking about it from Jason's perspective as well, because obviously there's a certain thing there of, if you're coming from a tech role and you're trying to expand your skills beyond that or taking your tech skills deeper, you've kind of got a bit of a different tilt because obviously like coming from a communications and marketing background and then doing what you're doing now, effectively also tying together that passion for just technology and all things nerdy into your role. So does any of that kind of come up in how you've approached your career as well?
I'm just going to take a sip from my branded bottle here.
AWS Community Builders apply in January.
Yes. No. There's that Glengarry, Glen Ross, always be selling, right? Always be marketing. It might sound kind of weird. I'm a builder. I don't know anything about marketing. But the truth is, we all are our own brand, even if you might not want to admit that. And the things that you put out in the world, represent, who you are. So learning in public, growing in public, even failing in public. I get asked a lot, people, what, I want to join community builders. What kind of an article should I write or something? Some of the best content I've seen are like catastrophic failures of someone trying to like deploy something, it breaks, they figure it out, and then they tell other people how it broke and how they fixed it. So failure in public is actually incredibly great learning. And when you're creating things like that and you're sort of sharing what you've learned, there's that saying, if you're teaching something, it helps reinforce it for you. So I would say for, anyone that wants to, grow in their career, don't be shy, just get out there. You don't have to have a YouTube video, with like 1,000 views to be successful. I mean, one of the MKBHDs, like a tech YouTuber, 8-9 million subscribers. I think it was his 100th video, he thanked his 75 subscribers. So imagine doing something 100 times and only having like 75 people have subscribed to what you're doing. So doing this thing takes persistence and grit, and you just have to keep going at it. But even when you're job hunting, being able to point to examples of your work, things that you've done, can be tremendously helpful, and it can help you stand out from other people that are going after the same role.
Definitely. And I guess, yes, by all means.
So you get this instant, people come to you, and you can't be an introvert. Eventually, you're going to be an extrovert.
There is something. Yes, I do want to say, just to reinforce the point that was mentioned there. So the part there about obviously, as someone who's run a user group as well, the fact of how valuable that is as an introvert to kind of make you come out of your shell, because then people will come and talk to you as part of that as well. And for the value, obviously, that you've seen of handing over that to Dmytro as well. So, but yeah, so you had a question as well, yeah?
So the question I had was
Yes.
my big thing, being able to pass on groups and they don't die. What is your advice to people to, I have a few months myself, but when I ask you guys around succession planning, to how do you keep user groups going, to keep this stuff going for beyond the lifetime of the person that starts it?
Yeah, so the question there being about succession planning for user groups and for communities, which I guess also applies probably to things like how Jason thinks of it for Community Builders program overall, because obviously there's quite a lot of stuff that goes into that sort of thing. And so how would something like that, like how would the Gold Coast user group run after Dmytro? How would Community Builders run after Jason?
It would die. When I retire, I'm taking the whole program with me. Anyway, go ahead.
Yes, go Dmytro.
I already met a lot of people who offering help with running user groups. So if one day I will decide that I move to a different city, to different country, I have plenty of friends who can take over it from me, and I trust they can do it even better and bring a new life to the user group. So I'm not afraid about it.
Yeah, excellent.
I finally get to have a hot take. Here we go. Hot take. The difference, right, between a community and a cult is about, one person, and if that one person leaves, everything falls apart. But a community is an interconnected web with a lot of different people that have different strengths. And so if a community is built in the proper way, the person who started it or the person who's leading it can step away. And as long as the right people have been brought up in the community to share leadership, the community will continue to thrive.
That is a golden takeaway that I'm going to use for a bunch of stuff. And even I think there's something we can take to that with regards to our own teams and our workplaces as well, is that, if the boss isn't there for something, does the team still operate? If so, that's a sign of a healthy team where things can work in that way because you do have that interdependency, rather than boss is gone, nothing's going to happen, right? Yeah. And Mai, any thoughts from you?
Yeah, definitely the community will continue going. I left a community that I helped build back at AWS, which is AWS She Builds Tech Skills. Yay, Chris! Yes. It's still going, especially in North America. So despite what's happening in the current political climate, they're still growing strong over there, and I applaud them. So it takes that small community to keep going with what they can help benefit the wider community out there. So big applause to them for continuing believing and continuing to help spread the word in that, there is a place for minorities out there in tech.
Absolutely. I'm going to throw a bit of a spicy one here because we are wrapping up towards the end. Of course, it wouldn't be a tech conference if I didn't ask what the future is of generative AI. Sorry, Chris. So, how does AI come into the future of things, both within careers and everything like that? Just as like a 1-minute personal, this is what I want to tell about that. What's the one thing you'd want to share as your thoughts on generative AI? And obviously, I will say Jason's here as an AWS staff member, so we will forgive him if he mentions Q.
Okay, so my biggest expectation is have personal assistant who will store any information I get through the day. I'm kind of the person who still orders every document in a folders and well-structured with all the text. Everything must be organized, but I'm really waiting for the time when I need only put it, and anytime I can get it out without knowing where is it, what content, and we are almost there. So I'm really involved in playing with different AI stuff right now, testing different approaches, all these RAG, graph databases, testing Kiro and Amazon Q Developer in my daily work. And it's exciting. It's something new coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're still in early days. It feels a lot like, the late 90s with web or, early mobile. There's so many players, there's so many solutions, there's so many interesting things happening. Every day I get the Product Hunt newsletter about what's new, and I'm just stunned at the things that people are creating and the solutions that they're solving for, sometimes they're just incredibly small solutions. But I'm like, this is beneficial to some people. So I have honestly no real predictions about the future. I think that a lot of this is still being figured out, but obviously, AWS is a great place to build things like that. We have so much flexibility, but definitely not my area of expertise. You can ask me more community questions, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, does anyone know how much does it take in order to replicate a human brain, right? There's 800 billion neurons out there, plus even more synapses, and we haven't figured out how the brain works, for one. But let's say we need to replicate that into the amount of GPUs that are required. We need about at least a couple of hundred exaflops, right? And then if you convert that into how much does it cost to run that on actual hardware, that's roughly upwards of 400 million USD, right, at any given moment at peak. So I don't think, we're there yet, right? Obviously not. So don't worry if you think, oh my God, AI is going to take my job away. I think we're a little bit further away from that. But what can you do to prepare? Use your tools, right? And that'll make you a 10x engineer, a 10x whatever your role might be, even an architect. And I'll talk about that in my next session.
Absolutely. And so something interesting there when we mentioned the whole AGI thing is the whole thing that it's not just thinking that happens in the brain as well. As a good example, if anyone's coming up to lunchtime, they'll probably find that their brain's working a little bit differently than just after lunchtime. And obviously the other part there around the thing that it won't necessarily solve anything, and there's the giant cost for it as well, which has ethical implications, which we'll hear more about later in the day as well. Okay, so I guess as a final wrap for this session, for each of our panelists, obviously we have a great room full of people here. Is there one thing you'd like them to take away, for our audience to take away, either a final thought, a question for them to ponder, or an action for them to take?
Okay. So look at me, and if you have any doubts that you can be presenter, run a user group, or do anything, and believe in yourself, you can do it. If I did, you can definitely do it.
Beautiful. And also, as a thing for that as well, for the meetups as well, meetups are always looking for speakers and presenters, always, always, always. And they're also a great place to do it for the first time as well. I think you'd agree, so definitely reach out. Thank you, mate. Thank you, mate.
One of the hardest things for humans to do is to put ourselves out there, right? To take a risk, to go up and talk to a person we haven't spoken to before, present in front of an audience, fly to Australia and give a keynote for the first time. These are risky things, right? These are risky things. We're scared of failure, we're scared of rejection, but the rewards for taking that step are just incredible, right? All these people that have joined a user group, that have started a user group, that have joined a community program, met incredible people. I mean, I just had a fellow here, Greg, talking about going to reInvent and going to the community hub that we run and meeting people that he had interacted with, and yeah, he actually mentioned you, right?
Yes,
and sitting down at the laptop and figuring things out. So there's just so much rich, incredible opportunity in community. So I would just say, take a risk, step out there, join a user group, and talk to people, and you'll get a lot of benefit from it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole thing. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? Yeah. Also, Mai.
Yeah, so what are you going to get your hands dirty with after today, right? Not only that, what will you teach back to whoever that might be? It might be your kid. Explain it like they're 5, right? So just distilling it into a complex idea into something simple would make it stick in your brain, especially for certifications and stuff. So there's lots of different ways to use that knowledge.
Awesome. And I think as a good final wrapping point is something that Jason mentioned there, when it comes to taking a risk for things, if you want to find out more about our panelists, obviously information is up there, but also feel free to chat to them, to any of the people, also who you see on other talks today. So obviously Mai's giving a talk in a little bit. If you're hearing from someone today who you think that was just a really cool talk and I'd really love to talk to that person, they want to talk to you. Wouldn't that be true? They actually want to hear from you because it makes it real for them as well. So,
and some of us desperately seek validation. Just throwing that out there. Just putting that there.
so definitely, take that chance, reach out, do that. I want to thank everyone here for coming, for all of our attendees for coming along. I want to thank our panel presenters as well, so thank you very much, everyone.